All right, so getting right into the afternoon sessions, we have Carla
Holloway-Chuck.
Holloway-Chuck.
You got it.
I also
Yep.
have one of those last names that's usually just a long pause, and I'm like, that's me. That's
Yeah, that's it.
So Carla's here from Clow, Canada for some hydrant and valve training.
Woo, exciting, right? I'll do my best to make it a little jazzy.
So Carla is the BC manufacturer representative for Canadian-made Clow Canada hydrants and the North American-made Clow valves. Based in North Vancouver, Carla started her career as a safety specialist in BC, then moved into global sales with electric utilities and mines for over 12 years, and she's also a ground search and rescue team leader in BC. She's grateful to be back working in one time zone with water utilities. She'll have been a part of the Clow team for 2 years this coming December. So I will pass it on to Carla.
Thanks. All right. Oh, good. There we go. I got some sound. Perfect. Let's see if we can get to the next slide. Need a second. Sorry, guys. One sec. A little technical difficulty here. There we go. Okay. Yeah, all right, perfect. So yeah, I've been with Clow not quite 2 years, and it's been a wild ride coming onto a new company during COVID. I started out in BC, as like we said, as a safety specialist, so doing everything from confined space rescue, working with BC Hydro and different utilities across Canada on their arc and flame resistant garments, full safety programs, all of that. And then, working in Nunavut at Divec and all over mines throughout Canada. And then I've been with a team leader with search and rescue for 22 years. It's been a wild ride. I'm with South Fraser Search and Rescue on a bit of a hiatus, but I've worked with Squamish Search and Rescue, North Shore Search and Rescue. They had that big National Geographic. I don't know if you've seen the movies series, but it's free on National Geographic. I didn't make the cut, but I did get to haul all the camera gear up the mountains a few times. I thought that would get me in, but no. So yeah, that's sort of a bit about who I am and what I've done, and then a lot of the water work as well. Done some really cool rescues in Chilliwack with the Chilliwack team as well. We had an opportunity to save a young boy one time, and that was pretty dramatic to be a part of that scenario. So, coming back and presenting in front of a camera and everything should be no sweat. But it has been a while with COVID and everything. So I am extremely proud to be working for Clow. I feel like I lucked out. I get to work with a really tremendous company. I love the team, my managers, everything is wonderful, and I get to be a part of a team of 650 people in Canada. We are the only ones that fully manufacture everything, the whole entire hydrant, everything is done in Canada down to the O-rings. So a good piece of that is it keeps our tax dollars in the country. It aligns with social equity. So our team members have, health care and paternity leave and all of those great things. Another key and interesting part about our hydrants is they're cast in Quebec. And that's all done with induction furnaces. So think of like induction stoves. They're like electric stove tops, and you can boil water in a matter of seconds. It's so fast. So this is the same idea. They're using hydroelectric power. They use induction furnaces, and that's how they cast. So you're not using coal power like they do in other countries and that type of thing to cast our hydrants. Also, we can calculate carbon offset, which is important to some cities. We also have extremely low freight. We're only transporting within Canada, so it's not going overseas and different shipments that way. So we've got a really low footprint. Our hydrants as well are 250 PSI. A lot of the other brands are only about 175. Some of the differences with that is just they're more robust, so they typically need less maintenance and care that way. We are NSF 61 and 372 certified, and because it's all done in North America, we have regular visits to our plants to make sure that everything is the lowest lead possible in our water stream. I drink from the taps at home, everything like that. It's really nice to be comfortable in knowing that we're able to achieve those results and meet those standards. And despite manufacturing in Canada, we can still do it at a competitive price. We're right in there with everybody else, and we're not, we're able to play in the market and be successful here in Canada. Our valves are manufactured in North America. We also have restrainers, sewer saddles, so forth. We'll kind of go over a bigger list of that. Some of our product lines, I don't know if anyone's seen these before. We offer inline hydrants. Does anybody know what that is? Any hands or not really familiar? Okay, we got one. Okay, so an inline hydrant is we have a hydrant in Alberta that's 26 feet deep. Could you imagine pulling a rod that's 26 feet deep? You definitely need a lot of mechanical advantage. You got to get crane in there, what have you. So what an inline hydrant does is the boot goes all the way down and connects, but we can set the base of the hydrant at a different depth. So whether you only need 10 feet, 8 feet, what have you. So you're not pulling such a long rod, and it still functions the same as a regular hydrant. You're just not pulling the whole rod out. So it would the bottom assembly would just sit at a higher level. And then I know we had some people in here from the Yukon. Anybody here in this room from the Yukon today? Oh, it was yesterday? Okay. So they're more familiar with an online hydrant where it gets so cold that they constantly have running water in the system, and that's where it'll connect in that system. So an online hydrant. And then monitor hydrants might get more and more and more popular over the next handful of years. Anybody familiar with those? Not yet. So they're typically been used on industrial sites. So it has an arm that's cast off the back, and then there's other companies that provide the top piece so that you can work from your cell phone and fight fires. And it has a monitoring turning head, and you can do that all from your cell phone. So if you need to evacuate, so for example, BC Hydro's looking at these with me, because if they have to evacuate a dam because of forest fire, no one's there. They can have a monitor hydrant and be spraying and try to protect that multi-billion-dollar asset, right? So again, we're thinking, okay, smaller communities, might there be an opportunity, or are there assets there that we might need to protect? I know in Bella Coola, they have some diesel power to help their electrical system. So a monitor hydrant might make sense to put near that asset so that they can, if there is a fire that's going to run through the town, they can address it even remotely. So monitor hydrants are another element that we can produce, and we're the fastest ones at doing that because out of all the manufacturers, we can produce those and deliver them quite readily right now it's 4 weeks, because we manufacture in Canada. So anything unique that you need as well, we're able to do it fairly readily. And even during COVID and all the supply chain challenges, we just ramped up, had another shift come on site to keep our delivery times manageable. It was very, very popular. My cell phone just didn't stop ringing when the supply chain issues were hitting. So, so that kind of just covers some of the other hydrant elements that you might run into. So just to be aware of, really, if you're thinking anything over 12 feet, might need an inline hydrant, just call me and we'll go over it all again. It's just like, oh yeah, it's going to be deeper than 12 feet. That girl told me that thing, and I just need to call her and we'll get you all sorted out. Of course, there's gate valves. We do butterfly valves, check valves, we have indicator posts. We do sewer saddles. Our service boxes are made in Canada as well. Pipe restrainers. And then I'm going to do a little foreshadowing effort here. You get to see what our Hydrant is all about. And at the end of the presentation, we'll dive into a bit of that so you better understand our technology and what we're doing in the field today. A little bit about CLOW, again, about our history. So we began in 1903. These are like real pictures of when we started McAvity. And there's really like a tall ship. I don't know if you see that in the background, and horses and buggies. Like that's how far back in Canadian history we go. So it's definitely, we've been around a very long time, stayed in Canada and didn't go to other countries for, you know, those types of cost savings. We were able to develop the economies of scale in our own country. So we're going to go over some mishaps, and the guys in the back are going to help me. I think if we go to the next slide, or could you go to the next slide, or whichever, it might be bigger on the next slide. Sorry. Maybe. Or do you need me to go? Okay, we can do it here. There it is, yes. So this is just the power of water and when things can go wrong. Whoa, right? We'll play that one more time just so you can get another look at it. Like, it's extremely powerful. That's gonna hurt, right? So as we go through this, I just want to show some of the mishaps before we get back into the safety. So we'll go to the next one. Thank you so much for showing that. Yeah, right? And when it was in the United States, I think he maybe meant to tighten it. I'm not sure what he was up to. Thank you. Yes. I think you're in good company here. It's, yeah. We can hit play on that one. Ukraine, but we know this happens. It's a really big main break. There isn't sound on this one, but, and just how quickly, like a main break, I mean, a lot of you have seen this, but, or maybe not quite to this extent yet if you're newer to the system. He's like, what the heck, right? I know, and look at, like, look at that volume of water. Just incredible from that main break. Yeah, they're all going back in, like, with, you know, the world ending. Do you guys want to see the very beginning again, real quick? Just do that real quick, and then we can end it. Like, those garbage bins go flying, too. Just incredible power in our water main system, so definitely something to just be aware of. We can scroll to the next video if you can. And this one we probably have to show 3 times. It's a very short clip, but again, it's the power of water. Yeah, the next one. There we go. Like, whoa, right? We'll watch it, we'll put it on 2 more times. It's so quick. It's quite something to see. And I really appreciate the guys helping me because we were having a struggle with it. If you hear yeah, perfect. We're gonna do one more real quick. Lands like on his head too. It's just brutal. So these are your reminders as we start going through all the safety elements. We can just go to the next slide. Another reminder I mean, no one in this room needs to have this reminder, but it's definitely something some of you might have even seen this over the years where this has actually happened. But yeah, there's no holding back to break your windows and get through, so you definitely don't want to park beside or in front of a fire hydrant. The same goes for working on hydrants. You definitely don't want one of these caps or anything else hitting the side of your truck, so try to keep it far away and not near any of the ports. All right, so we're going to start rolling through a little bit of the fire hydrant maintenance. And just talk briefly about the importance. Of course, you want to be sure that the hydrants are functioning well and that the performance is there when it counts. I mean, there's even, some brands have had, defects with their products. So even some newer hydrants, you want to flush, you want to make sure that they're working. You want to take the caps off, because what if a pin falls out and a firefighter goes up and the whole nozzle comes off? They won't know what to do, right? So I've heard of that happening in the past, even on newer hydrants. You want to prolong the life of your system and the hydrants, so it's definitely a huge cost savings over time in asset management, and reducing liability by making sure that the hydrants are functioning in your zone. There we go. So there's a lot that comes into play, hence everybody keeps track of your EOCP credits and all of that. That's a huge piece for the cities to make sure that they're doing their due diligence and making sure that you're well educated on how to use these. And that helps too with Bill C-45, where definitely people can, they'll follow up with you if you haven't, if there is a problem with a hydrant. And then understanding liability. So there's a ranch in Alberta that fully burnt down. They had 2 hydrants on their property, and they knew the pressure was low, and they knew that there were problems with the hydrants, and they went after the municipality to pay for all the damage and all of that. It went through the court, and the ranch was actually held liable because they were required to maintain. Yeah, the city provided the system and the water flow and all of that, but they were required to take care and maintain those hydrants, and that wasn't being done on their own property. So in that case, they weren't held liable. So it's just keeping up with maintenance is so important in the process. Hope you laugh a little. I would have doubt anyone was expecting a super safety squirrel, but yeah. So we're going to talk a bit about safety. I'm going to be channeling said squirrel a little bit. This is my first hydrant breakdown in a while. A few of you know, but I had some pretty major abdominal surgery, so I'm just getting back on track with doing everything. So if I miss a step or whatever, I know you all got my back. Some of you here have been doing this for 20 years or more. So if there's anything I do forget, just like chime in. Hey, Carla, this one next thing. But yeah, I'm pretty good, but we'll see. It's been a while since I've been in front of this many, bunch of people, and being on camera as well. So of course, safety is our priority. Hence, I made like a stopping moment with a ridiculous squirrel so that we could just get focused in and not, fall asleep at all the things. So safety gear, PPE, so vest, hard hat, gloves, making sure you have steel toe boots. If you dropped anything on your foot, it's definitely going to hurt. I left out one thing that maybe the Kamloops guys or from the guys from the interior somewhere might think of that you really always should remember, because every time I go to Kamloops, I hate to say it, I always need it. Safety glasses, because when that wind picks up and you're up on one of those big giant hills, man, I always getting stuff in my eyes. So eyewear is another one. You want to look for hazards. So looking up for power lines. When you have some deep buries, I know we had some in Whistler that we were working on, and they were, probably 14 feet deep, and there was power lines off to one side. We had to put in extra safety elements to make sure that it didn't, as we got that up, it didn't fall into the power lines or what have you. Thinking about your truck placement so that your truck isn't in front of any of the ports when you're working on this, because you just never know, right? There might be something unexpected that turns up, and they will put, I've seen what kind of dents they can put in a truck real quick. And then when you get up to the hydrant, you really want to make sure it's secure, like really give it a push or a kick or what have you, because a lot of people will back into these, right, in their truck. They didn't see it, whatever, and then they're like looking around and they're like, okay, well, boop, and they'll just prop it back up on the top, even though it's completely not attached. It's pretty wrecked and you won't even notice. So you want to make sure it's secure before you get working on it. And the other things to get ready, our hydrants are really easy to work on. You need a 3/4 inch socket, and that'll do the bonnet and the internal pieces here. And then a 5/16 for the breakaway flanges. Then your standard hydrant wrench, seat removal tool, TCs, ours, they're pretty much the same. And then the one thing, if you haven't worked a lot on our hydrants, that you need to really get used to and is the holding nut. Looks like this. Are you guys familiar with it? Do you use it even on our hydrants or not? Okay, we got one that does. So this is important. You really want to have one. So a holding nut, what it does, and there is a right-hand turn one. Like if you're on the island, a lot of places have a right-hand open hydrant. Everywhere else is a left hand, so you want to make sure you have the right one. And what it does is when we're working on the hydrant, so this is a piece of the lower assembly, right? So this is the main valve seat, and then you've got the drip valve. If you have, when you have it fully open, like that, or almost fully open anyhow, these ears aren't as strong, right? So they can bend. If you haven't opened that hydrant in a long time, these ears will bend, and then you're going to have nothing but problems with your hydrant. So all the holding nut does is make sure that this sits down in the bottom where in closed position so that you're not bending those ears, so you can really reef on that hydrant and there's nothing you can do, you won't break it. So if it's a new or a hydrant that hasn't been serviced in a long time, anything like that, that's what it makes sure that you don't bend those ears and hurt the hydrant. So it's good to have all those tools handy. We'll kind of go over a few more of the steps and things that you might not have thought about. So you want to remove any obstructions, of course, anything around the hydrant. We talked about making sure that the hydrant's secure. And then the things that we don't want to have to think about, but you really do need to start. I know I look for needles now, especially doing search and rescue. We're always, you're finding stuff like that all the time. And one prick, it just takes you out of your job for a long time. That worry and all that stress, you just don't want to worry about it. So I definitely think it's important to look around for those. We went into an area actually in Surrey, and we were going to replace 2 of the nozzles because we thought something was wrong. We actually got down there, and there was a hole. It was on a path through in a forest, and there was a hydrant in there. And anyhow, one of the homeless guys had actually tried to take a grinder and saw off the brass on both sides, so it actually wasn't anything it was tampered with. And so yeah, it was quite something to get down there, and then the guy came back that had obviously done it, but the battery ran out on his grinder, so we had to replace a bunch of pieces and learn how to tap the nozzles, and had to work with the guys to tap the nozzles and make the changes. But yeah. So just things that you wouldn't normally think of that need to be a part of our considerations as, working in our cities. Those are a thing now. So you also want to check to make sure these parts of the hydrant are above ground, and if an extension should be added so that you can mark that. I've seen there's one in Banff that's like buried to here. Why is it important that that's above ground? There's kind of 2 reasons. Anybody have an idea? Yeah, go ahead. Yep, one, so it breaks away properly, so it's at the right height for when a vehicle does hit it, that it breaks away in the right spot, so the whole lower stem, everything is still intact, and you're replacing way fewer parts and not having to dig. So that's one. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead. Excellent. That's another absolutely great one. If you can't really open it and work on it as a firefighter, right? So that's another one. And then the third one is actually, you just don't want mechanical parts under the dirt. How are you gonna, the maintenance, you're gonna have other issues coming just by having parts buried that shouldn't be in the dirt. So it becomes a maintenance issue as well. And then just, when you're doing, you want to fully open the hydrant under pressure and check for leaks. You're looking for if there is water leaking anywhere. You want to also, you can listen to see if you hear leaks when it's under pressure. You see a lot of the guys will, do this. Has anybody done that yet? You can listen and you hear for leaks. A few of you nodding, okay, yep. First time I saw that when I was first starting, I was like, what? And yeah, sure enough, you could hear it. I was like, okay, I got this now. And then close the hydrant. You want to be sure you remove a cap and then open the hydrant. You want to flow the hydrant and ensure there's consistent flow and no obstructions. Even just, clearing the water, you'll often see a lot of debris coming out of the hydrant if you haven't done a flow in a while. And then close the hydrant and you check to see if it drains, putting your hand over it, make sure it's getting some suction and that it's releasing. And then what do you want to consider if the hydrant isn't draining? What are some things that you could do if it's not? Yes.
Keep both caps on, and you can turn on the hydrant and it will shove water out positive out the drain port. So the water will fill out all and shoot out the side.
Yep. That's one really good one. If that doesn't work, then there's another couple things. So some ideas are, but that's a great idea because that one is way easier if it does then drain. If it isn't draining, you could do an internal plug, right? And consider that. You still have to get the water out, suction the water out, and then put a drain on it so that you just don't want water. It's like a dry barrel hydrant for a reason. You don't want water in there. Anybody kind of think of why you definitely don't want very much water in there? Freezing. It also brutal, so they'll be like, oh, well, down in Vancouver, it doesn't really freeze. We don't have to worry about it. But the other problem is your O-rings are going to start to wear out. All the pieces are going to go through an extensive amount, way further wear and tear. So that's another reason that you don't, want water in there. But yeah, freezing is another one that's pretty important to try to avoid. So yeah, and then the plug, well, I have a better picture for the people online, but it's right here on the bottom of the hydrant. And so we'll talk about that as we take the hydrant apart here. Okay, so now we can kind of get to the maintenance part. So make sure that you shut off the water, close the lead valve, and isolate the hydrant. So I won't be doing that when I come and we do training and we're working on hydrants on the field. I have to leave that to you, but that's one of the first steps that you're very familiar with. You want to make sure that nozzle's still off and to release any residual pressure. And you want to be checking to make sure there's easy operation and no flow. So you want to inspect and clean the nozzles and caps. So a lot of times this is pretty important. Why? Because you'll also find if the firefighters, they're new or big guys, they'll just crank on those caps. I'm sure a lot of you have worked on hydrants where they just two-handed and that's the result. It will actually fuse to the cap, and then you have to replace the whole side nozzle. And this just won't come apart. You can put it in a vise, and it's not going to go anywhere. It's totally attached. And then you have to replace it, and it's, and tap it and what have you. One thing that we've been doing as well, if you have one on a training, a firefighter training site, is these, I'll pass them around, or maybe I can grab one of you guys on the end to just grab them and just pass them out, 2 to each side maybe. So these are neoprene gaskets that you can use in the cap to try to reduce the amount of times that you're changing the side ports on your hydrants. So it'll reduce the amount of times you have to go and work on those if it's a hydrant being used a lot. Also teaching firefighters and what have you to just one hand, right? One hand to close things. You don't need to be reefing on a hydrant like that. There's so much damage that you can do. So going over that with them making sure that they're using one hand. And a good example for firefighters is, you know, when you have like you're at a sink that has 2 handles and you turn them, you're not like turning the water off and then cranking it another 2 times, right? That like another turn out of that, you never want to do that, right? You know you're going to break your faucet at home, so why would, you know, you can do the same with a hydrant. Just a bit about the Storts nozzles. Are a lot of you using Storts or not really? There's Storts and there's regular pumper style. So Storts is the quick connect, so the firefighters can get their hose on there right away. Some cities, I know Richmond is doing a change out, so they have some old pumper style, and then they have a Storts. And when you're changing these out, so you want a Storts removal tool, these babies. So it makes a big difference. Typically 2 people, it makes it a lot easier to change those out just to hold this in place. And oops, hence, yeah, you gotta be careful anyway, sorry about that. And so you'll use the Storts removal tool, it goes on there, but one of the key things that you need to know too with the Storts is you always want it sitting up and down, you don't want it horizontal like that. Anybody know why? Oh, cool. Get to teach you guys a few things that are new. So you always want it vertical, not horizontal, because otherwise, especially in the north, you'll get water that builds up in here, and when and then when it's cold, it'll freeze into ice. So when it's sitting like this, it doesn't drain. So when it's sitting like that, it's draining out and there's no water in here, so no ice. Otherwise, the firefighters have to chip away at the ice, which reduces the whole point of the Storts, to get the ice out and then attach their nozzle, right, or their hose. So important part about Storts, yeah. So I mean, they come from the factory if they're installed already, but if you ever have to replace one, what have you, it's important to know. Okay, so we can remove the bonnet screws, but I'm actually, before I redo that, because we're also working, it's on the next slide, but we can remove the grease screw. Anybody know why this is an important step? Anybody? Oh, come on. So the grease screw, you want to remove it, and I like to remove it earlier because as you're putting the bonnet, when you go to put it back on later, you can get air in there and a lot of pressure. And I was in Salmon Arm, and I went to the back of my truck to grab another tool, and the guys were getting too far ahead. They didn't remove that. And it'll actually shoot out the amount of pressure, and it'll fly. We were like, whoa, make sure wait till it hit the ground and then try and find that piece. You're totally not going to be able to do that. So you want to take that grease screw out just so it's the first thing and then you don't forget about it, and then put it somewhere safe so you don't lose it. All right, you might want to cut the sound, so we're going to remove the bonnet. Got me, okay. And this is like a cutaway hydrant, so it's not quite the same. I can't do the, star pattern for putting them back on or removing. Oh, the grease screw for the operating nut. Yeah. Oh, and on some of our old hydrants, so I'm going to be working with Tsawwassen First Nation next week, and we've got one of the old M67s, and they have a different top cap on them. You do need an extra tool. So there's a separate piece that you have to remove, and then you use this wrench to get the bonnet moving and get it off. So that's something that you might need to utilize. That we moved away from that style and we completely upgraded with the M93. So M93, the reason it's M93 is because they started making them in 1993. That's when they did all the big upgrades. So then you get your hydrant wrench right here. And then you want to turn it, or open the hydrant. Sorry. And for, so if you have a new hydrant, please never do this where you take that and you kind of chip away at the paint around the edge. If you open the hydrant and then you kind of push it a little bit farther, like if you opened it all the way and it still hasn't separated, if you push this a little bit further, we'll get it mostly open here, and then I can show you in the back side of the hydrant. You'd actually cut away at the very bottom down there. So you'll see me opening that up. And once it's open, then you can push it another push, sort of like one more round on a new hydrant, and it'll pop that. And you won't wreck the paint, you won't have any chips, you won't have any issues. So, and then this is kind of awkward on the training hydrant, so it doesn't sit like a normal bonnet does. It's awkwardly positioned. But yeah, you'll be able to pull that off. Far more easily. So like I said, it pushes off the bottom of the boot and like separates it so much easier than chipping away at it or anything like that. So we'll get the bonnet off. You'll want to take this. These are usually good for another round. You don't always need to replace them. Look for damage. If it has any damage, absolutely replace it. But you don't always need to, depending on how often you're visiting the hydrants. So this is our Hydrolube. I should go to the next slide because remove the bottom of the okay. So Tsawwassen First Nation and I normally have this piece on the far side there, that black old operating nut component. So we're going to do a conversion to the new. So that old one, and I usually have one to hand around, they used to get a little bit of water in them, and sometimes that would freeze, and then that would crack. And also, you can see on the far side, the old one, the old M67, every brand, didn't matter, they have that piece of brass that would also crack and cause problems. So we've all manufacturers have made the changes. We were the first ones with the Hydrolube. And the Hydrolube, just every time, it re-greases itself every time you operate. So we've got a really, really great protection in there, and with the O-rings. So, and then if you're going to take apart the op nut and do any sort of servicing, so if you get a leak around the top, around here, you're definitely, it's one of the O-rings inside the operating nut. And then if you get leaks, a little bit farther down here, it's usually these ones on the outside, these three here. So that's what you want to pay attention to. And then it's for the bonnet and for these parts, if you're replacing them, it's 40 foot-pounds as well to reset them. So we can, how am I doing time-wise? I want to make sure I'm good. Yeah, okay. Maybe we'll do that on the other way just to make sure I don't run out of time. So you can take this off. You can see the two on the map there. There's two bearings. And if you don't get those hoops fully out of there, because they can get kind of wrecked from the old one, you really got to scrape in there, make sure you've got them out, so that when you put in the new one, it operates and functions properly. Yeah, so you want to look at those O-rings and gaskets, make sure everything's good. You always want to work through the top of the hydrant. I've seen some contractors where they'll take the whole hydrant body off the hydrant to work on the lower rod. So definitely not something you want to do. And then back east, a lot more often, you'll find other groups selling, non-specific parts, but you want to make sure that they're specific to Clow. space on my table here. Oh, and this is, there we go, there's the picture of the old bonnet top, and that's what some of them will look like. I know in Prince George they have some of these old ones. I've seen one at, you know, we're going to work on the one at Tawasin First Nation. Does anybody else have these old ones? Yeah. I don't like those ones either. Just that top piece was brutal back in the day. Luckily, we haven't made those in, gosh, I don't know, 40 years so or more. So yeah, just to remember that you might need that other bonnet wrench. Okay, these you're probably very familiar with. You're going to insert the seat removal tool. Go. And then the holding nut. So again, this is unique to cloud. We talked about the importance of this. So it just takes a bit to get that on there. And again, this is gonna, as you can see, sort of in the back and the bottom there, we want to get that, that to close. I have one right in front of me. Thank you. I think I'm all the way on there. And as we go, so and then you're looking for, as you're doing the holding nut, you want to make sure you're getting the rod to. You'll see it coming up inside the hydrant. You want it to go right to the bottom of the hole. If anybody wants to come have a look, you're more than welcome. So you'll get the stem coming right up to the bottom here, and that's what you want to see. And then at this point, then you can put a hydrant wrench or a bar in. There's usually 2, 3, 5. Can you see it down there doing its thing? Perfect. Yeah, actually, I might get one of you guys to come and lift that up for me. Oh, yeah, perfect. Thank you. I think Grandma all set there. Perfect. Or this should have come. Oh, you know what? We'll put it back down for a second. I know what I forgot a step. I apologize. I think we want to take this off. That's when so yeah, sorry, you take the holding nut off. I totally forgot. And then, there we go. Faster with the, yeah. So then we're just taking the holding nut off, and then we can take the seat removal tool off, and then we can pull up the hydrant. Sorry, a little rusty at this. Normally I'm right on point. Oh no, I'm descending the thing. You can do it with the seat, but okay, yeah, that's what I needed to do. And then, sorry guys, one sec, I just forgot the, okay, now, okay, and then did I not do this right? I'm trying to remember now. Maybe I went the wrong direction. There we go. There it is. Okay. There we go. Now I should be able to remove this, I think. Or it should just pull up. No. Okay. I was just going to take it's supposed to be the seat removal. I knew I'd script right here, but okay. Clockwise direction. Yeah. But I don't want it to do that. Okay. Okay, so now, so I had it right the first time, I think, and then I just mixed it up. Okay, so I wanted it closed, and then we just want to remove the seat.
Does this tool stay in?
No, you want to take that out and,
So you're closed now?
okay.
Or partial?
Oops, now I'm opening it. Sorry, guys. In a little while. Okay, so I've got that to here. Oops, no, other way, shit. I'm sorry. Sorry, guys, little musical interlude, you know? Okay, that's where that needs to be. And then I just did this wrong, I think. No, I don't think so. No, I need to. Yeah, what am I doing wrong again?
You want to unthread that out and then pull the whole thing?
Yeah, then we're supposed to. We're supposed to remove the seat removal tool, but I think maybe I went the
So
wrong
how do
way.
you pull the whole stem out? Normally?
That's, well, once I get the seat removal tool and the op nut off, then it's usually. I'll try it one more time this way. Sorry. Okay. Well, I was supposed to go clockwise, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going the wrong way, right?
You would take the whole thing out with the fuel.
No. Yeah, right? So,
Thread it in tight.
so I'm good there, right?
Tight, yeah.
Now I just need to remove the seat removal tool. Okay, I think I just do that.
Okay.
Okay. I think. Okay. Nope. I was doing so well, and then I knew I just needed to remove the seat removal tool, and then we're set.
But you need to loosen it first, right? When it's in the closed position.
Yeah,
That was the thing with that, right?
right.
So you don't bend the.
Yeah, so you don't bend the ears, yeah. And then this, and then that, and now I should be able to pull the stem out, and then it's fine. Okay, so I did it wrong, right? Okay.
It's really loose.
No, it's, I have to do it
Yeah,
again.
You gotta, you
Do
loosen
it
it
again.
with that.
Okay. Yeah, right. So you guys are gonna have to teach me. Shit, I'm almost there.
Yeah, but you needed to do that to get to the. No, you can loosen it. Just loosen the seat now, right? It's
That's
already loose,
right.
It's already loose, right? But you want that in so that when you're doing the initial loosen, that it doesn't bend the ears, right?
Right.
Okay, now we're done.
Now we're cooking with fire here. Am I unhooked now? I think I should be, right?
That should come out.
There we go. Jeez. I apologize, guys. There we go. Woo! No cheers. No applause. Sorry, guys. Thank you. It's been like I said, it's been a little hot minute since I've done this. It's been like a couple months. So, anyhow, so we'll continue on. And then remove the seat valve assembly. There's catch up. Okay, so you will pull this out typically, and you'll see a whole bunch of rust and dirt and damage and what have you. So you want to just clean that off, clean everything up. Then you'll need 2 pipe wrenches. you know, one here and one here. Typically, you want to take this and put it in a vise in your truck if it's way bigger. We're just working with a training hydrant, so it's not a huge deal. And you want to look at the O-rings and see that you got two here. They are different sizes, so these become really handy. Our O-ring charts, I have more at the front, so you can just put the O-rings on here and then you know which exact ones to pull from which bag in your truck. And then, yeah, so it's not usually this easy, but this is my training hydrant. So you'll remove the bottom plate. There's an O-ring in here typically. So if you're having like rust or issues on this bottom stem, it's because this O-ring has been problematic. So this piece is for later. If you go to an eye hydrant, it switches out to this. And so that stays, the sensors stay in the bottom, in the base, in the water of the hydrant, in the bottom of the boot there. So just thought I'd point that out. We'll talk about that more later. So you take it all apart. You've got your everything in order. So one is, and then the puck. So my boss had to fly out, this is before I started, to BC because, and they were like, our hydrant won't close, it's leaking, it's causing all these issues. And that's because the puck was put on the wrong way. So he flew all the way out and the puck was like that. So you absolutely want to make sure, see how it's angled in? That's the way that it needs to go on there. So you take that off. There are these, but they're no longer being used by any manufacturer. They're the polyurethane ones. They really like them in Quebec, but they're not what we're using anymore. This is the main seat. And if you needed to plug the hydrant, remember we were talking about the hydrant was filling with water. If you need to plug the hydrant, it's right there. There's a hole right there, and that's what the main drip valve here, oh, sorry, there's an O-ring right here. I always need to get my glove off to get this. And then, so you always need to check this piece right here. It's the drip valve facing. So if the drip valve facing is damaged, this part plugs this hole here. So if it's damaged, that drip valve facing, it won't plug this hole and you'll have a hydrant that's leaking. So this part is pretty important to make sure that it's in good condition. Sometimes you'll see it get really big divots in it from rocks or things getting in there. So that's an important part to look at for maintenance. You'll check the stem, make sure it looks good. And this is a spider coupling because it's a training hydrant. The two pieces are cut off, but this is also, if you're ever doing an extension to a hydrant, you want to make sure that you're adding the extension below the spider coupling. Why is that important? If it gets hit by a car, just make sure you want the spider coupling always right here so it snaps off. So any extension should be below. Pardon? Yeah, I don't want to like the movies, exactly, no doubt, wrecking everything. So that's another important thing to pay attention to when you're putting the hydrants together into, and then when we're putting it back together. Oh, actually, no, I was going to go over one more thing with you guys. Has anyone had to use a rethreading tool before? Okay, yeah. It can happen. Here, I should make my slides go ahead, sorry. So you have it attached to a vise, make sure you didn't miss anything. Yeah, so yeah, talked about the drip valve. Okay, and then a rethreading tool. So a rethreading tool is used if you accidentally drop, say, one of these down your hydrant and you wreck the threads in the bottom. Or what's another time you might have to use a rethreading tool? Cross threading, yeah. Or I was in Delta and they just had a huge volume of sand and dirt that got into they had one really deep hydrant in a bad area and it constantly got ingress of water into it, and they had so much dirt and silt attached to it, so we had to take that one apart. So your rethreading tool here, so it just goes on the bottom like that. One of the most important parts, though, is this castle nut. You want to make sure that's on there really tight. Otherwise, you could lose everything in the bottom. So you really want to make sure that you've got that on there tight and before you start to rethread. And then you would drop it down, and you don't just you get the rethreading tool going, and then you get it until it starts getting tight, and then you back it off. You get it till it's tight and back it off. If you don't back it off and you just force that thing through, you'll just, like you were saying, you'll cross thread the whole thing, and you'll just be redoing all new threads down there. And often that's not what you need to do. You're just cleaning out the dirt, or it might be just in one spot where it was where the threads need to be rebuilt and so forth. So these are not used very often. Something that you can try before you would go to one of these. So sometimes if you get a bit of water in the bottom of your hydrant, what can happen if you're having trouble just seating the hydrant? So you can get it where this sits a little bit off. It's, you'll get a bit of water and this kind of curves sideways. It's just this one's tight, but some of them are a little looser, right? You'll get the drip valve and what have you, and it's just a bit loose. So you'll hear it jingle a bit, and down there it's a little sideways, so the threads can't screw right on really easily. There is something that works really well. These, you can get them at Michael's, you can get them anywhere. Have you ever done this before with the clothespin trick? No? So what you can do is obviously not on the side here, but on the other side that's metal to metal, you can jam one of these guys in there. It's a piece of wood from a clothespin, just one half of it. Jam it in there, really bang it with a hammer, and it'll hold this main seat tight, and then you can actually get the threads, right? It'll actually thread properly because it's not off kilter. So you can try that too, versus getting a rethreading tool. Of course, you have to flush it to flush this out, but I've seen it work. I did it in Salmon Arm not too long ago, and yeah, it was just a great opportunity to see that in action. So now we'll start to put the hydrant back together again. Rethreading tool, we talked all about that. Yeah, and like I said, you only need that if you've even flushed the hydrant and you can't get it back. And then the main seat only goes on one way, or just, I need the O-ring. Don't want to forget that, then it won't go back together properly. And you can check the quality of the O-ring. You can get your main seat back on. Washer. Oh, before that, sorry. And make sure you're doing this the right way, getting it on there properly. Bottom plane. So I don't do that too tight, but you do want to put that on there really tight, get some pipe wrenches, and away you go. So that's putting that back together. Sure, I won't say no. Thank you. So you want to make sure when you're lowering this that you can stop at the, like if you need, at the coupling. at the spider coupling, and then lower it slowly. If you lower it too fast and it's got the hydrant, there we go, I think we're good. Yeah, I'll take it. Thank you so much for your help, appreciate it. If you lower it too quickly, you'll throw off some of those O-rings if you're lowering it into water or what have you, if you got some down there. And once that O-ring's moved, it'll leak. So you want to make sure your O-rings are in place. So you could use the holding nut again for putting it back together, but I find if I just reach down and I grab the rod and I turn it, lift up a little and I turn it, it starts to thread. You can get a couple threads on there. And away you go, right? So you'll just get it turned a couple times and then it's in place, and then I don't need to use that holding nut. One complaint that some groups have had about our rods, they are a bit bigger and they are a little heavier, but that's for longevity. They are heavier because we meet 250 PSI. If you don't have the heavier duty rod, then you're gonna, it's kind of like a corkscrew, like a Twizzler. You'll be replacing rods way more often than we have to, because we've got the more robust rod. Sorry for the folks at home. That was again to show. Oh, not on. Sorry, not paying attention. I'm also looking at the other two screens. Thank you, though. It's all been a big help. I apologize, I got behind on my slides. Again, I was doing that slowly so we don't throw off the whole, all the O-rings. Okay. So we put in the seat removal wrench, and then, or maybe I screwed it most of the way in, I guess, because it's the training hydrant, so you can often get it. I got it almost totally myself. It's only about 5 turns to close, but I managed to close it all with my hand. You won't be able to do that in real life. So you can do them. And then we'll be putting her back together. So we'll grab the, oh, there it is, right there. And actually, I'll show you one thing before I do that. So this is with the eye hydrant. It would go underneath the bonnet. So it's worth, so that has food grade tubing that goes, so we had that other piece that would be a sensor in the bottom, then we have food grade tubing that comes all the way up to here, and then this would sit on top, and then you have the bonnet on top of that, and then the shroud goes on after that. So it's a full ductile iron piece that goes on there, and that's how the eye hydrant kind of goes together. So it's pretty simple. I've done them, a whole bunch of them now in the field, but just so you have an idea of what that looks like. Exactly, yeah, because you get a whole new rod and whole new components. So when you're installing an eye hydrant, you pull all the guts out and you put in all new ones. So you don't have to do any of those pieces, that bottom plate. It all comes from the factory, all attached, all of those inside guts are all there. So it's just that's the addition that you do at the end. That's why it takes so little time to install. Yeah, well, I have more slides on that. So the eye hydrant is a smart hydrant. So we can take an existing hydrant and convert it, and it measures pressure and temperature. So temperature, so you know if you need to flush the hydrant, temperature, so if you need to add more chlorine, or like it kind of gives you some ideas, or if it's frozen down there or some other issue might be happening. So that's why the temperature. And then the pressure, it can identify main breaks before they even start it, or before they even break the ground. It'll also help you with your SCADA system. If you have blind spots, I know City of Burnaby's looking at one as well for their from water from Metro Van. They have one area that's not as consistent so that they can share the information and know. We've got a lot of eye hydrants installed throughout the interior. We just did one 2 weeks ago on the island, so lots of those. But I'll run through it more in 2 seconds here.
Are they compatible with the old?
Yes. Not the, like an M67, the old ones like that. Yeah, absolutely. We just replaced that out. And then also, I like to take, obviously not going to do it, but you can take a can of lube at this stage and just drop it on top of the stem. So there's no, grease gun or doing any of that. Drop it on top of the stem, and then you can thread this on the bonnet on, and it'll re-grease everything. So you're getting way less mess and goop and having to deal with things like that. Sorry, it's really awkward when it's a cutaway. It doesn't want to. Oh, I know, right? Somebody, thank you for mentioning that. I got carried away without the showing the eye hydrant off or the components and forgot to put the gasket on. Thank you for saying something. I appreciate it. Does anybody know the trick to making sure the gasket doesn't move too much and you can get it on properly? Nope. That does work. That can work though. I never even, I haven't done that. With ours, it's, you get it down to about a 1/4 inch above the gasket. So a little bit more than that. And you get it kind of in place here. And you do that, and then you just grab the bolts before you're closed it all the way down, and you just start them, thread them a little onto, just get it started. There it goes. And it'll hold the gasket perfectly in place before it's even down. There we go. 1, 2, 3. So it's pretty handy that way. And then when you go to close the hydrant, it pulls it down and it's all perfectly in place, and then you can just close it up. And see, it's closing right down. And when you're doing this, this is when you're going to see the grease coming up through the top as it's re-greasing. The old grease will start to push up. Yeah, it's a happy hydrant. I know I had, and even when you're putting the bonnet assembly back on, you just don't want to damage the O-rings. So fully close the hydrant. And we'll go over a couple more troubleshooting things. Again, you want to do it really hard with one hand. I'm not going to do it that tight today, but yep. And then you'll need to turn my sound off because I'm going to be back on. Thank you. And then you'd want to do a star pattern, right, of course, but on the training hydrant, I'm missing one, so. All right, then you're probably going to have a bunch of grease you need to clean off the top. As it re-greases and repairs itself. And if you didn't do that and you forgot to take this off, you'll often lose the screw, go flying, or you'll create a ton of pressure that you didn't need to. But while I do that, I'm going to go to the next slide. So just some troubleshooting. So one of the first questions I'll ask somebody if they're having problems with their hydrant is if it should be on the M93s, it's 19 to 21 turns to full close. But if it's more turns, it's a pretty good predictor that it's the upper rod that has an issue. And if it's fewer turns, you're not getting there, then it's something in the lower assembly. So it just helps you know where the problem probably is. And then, yeah, once it's all closed up and you have all the pieces back together, then you can open the hydrant and check for leaks and do all of those things. You'll want to leave one cap off to test and to flush, and then make sure it's draining when you put the hydrant all back together. And then you have to manually drain if it isn't draining, what have you. And visually check for leaks. Again, just another piece about the extensions, the spider coupling, like I was showing you before, extensions always go below. I just was with a contractor, had done it all wrong. It's far easier and faster for contractors to do it on the top. It's not right, but it's what happens. So you often need to check and just pay attention when a contractor is doing extensions if you're there watching. And this just kind of goes more into those elements, but we got a bit more to get through. You can also upgrade hydrants without excavating. So we have a bunch of upper body kits so that you can replace the whole upper half of the hydrant and the guts and what have you, and just not have to dig if the barrel of the hydrant and everything down below, like the base of it and the boot is fine, then we have kits to help you save some money, and you can just do that replacement. Another one of our upgrades, we will be one of only 2 hydrant companies, manufacturers, that powder coat our hydrants. So starting in October, our hydrants are going to all start coming powder coated. So you won't get the chips in the hydrant. You'll get more longevity with the color. You'll get just everything. The only other brand that has done that in the past is AVK. Has powder coated, or they do, I think, do that now. The others don't. So we're trying to, get ahead of the market curve. It was a great idea by them. Great, we stole it. We're doing it, stepping up to make sure that our hydrants always look really great and have that kind of solution. So the eye hydrant, like you saw, the pieces and the components, it measures, like I said, pressure and temperature. So we did one put one in Princeton. We put a couple, or in Penticton, we put a couple there. Princeton's got them everywhere. Penticton, they were blowing hot water tanks at the top on one hill, and they couldn't find the problem, and they were having that issue quite regularly. They threw an eye hydrant on. They could see the spikes when it was happening, and it was at a pressure relief station. They didn't have great eyes too in that more remote area, and so yeah, they were able to find the problem and address that. You're not tapping a pipe, so there's no excavation, no digging. It all just drops into the hydrant, so it's a pretty low-cost solution to having eyes into a network. I know they have a big pier in Richmond, and they have no visibility of whether water is running there or not, if there's any obstructions or what have you, so they're looking at putting these in so they know for sure. We also did one on an irrigation system where it was actually reading our guy. We put the eye hydrant in, and he called us, our technical guy. He's like, something's wrong. Must be something wrong with the eye hydrant. This is not right. It was 285 PSI on that hydrant, and it was actually accurate because we tested to check the flow, and that's what it was at. And it was coming untreated from a reservoir down to a vineyard. And that's why they kept blowing the lines, the irrigation lines in the vineyard, was because the pressure was just too high. So they had to make a bunch of changes to address that issue. Nope, it's still a dry barrel hydrant. This is the only part in the boot and it's measuring the pressure and the temperature right down there. So it's still a dry barrel hydrant. Everything's still great that way. Yeah, and you can see the two tiny sensors there that's doing that function. So yeah, it doesn't have to be running. So that's versus competitive products that I've seen. There's a few more things I've got. Ours and like other solutions that are coming out there, they don't have that many references. We have references everywhere. So I've had questions about the cold. We've got a ton of these. I think we have like 20 or something in Winnipeg. And it survived minus 20 or minus 55, I believe it was. So it was pretty amazing. I've got a lot of references already in British Columbia, some on the island. We've got them pretty much everywhere. Everybody's trying them out. And it's all our company. It's all owned by us, even the technology and the software. So you don't have to worry that you're making an investment that isn't going to be supported later, right? We'll always be helping and supporting our brand and our hydrants. So we're able to help with that. We have a whole team that does the technology side. We help it make sure if you want it to connect to your SCADA, it will. We have it on an app also, and then you set the high and low pressure ratings so that it'll let you know if it's too high or too low and what it's reading at, and it sends you a text message or an email so that you can address that right away if there's a problem. One of them was in Princeton, and it actually survived the floods. There are O-rings on the top and the bottom of this, and it was like fully submerged, and we didn't know if the battery or any of the parts would still work because that doesn't happen very often, and it was totally fine. I was shocked, quite surprised to believe that it survived that. But that's why ours also, there's no battery. It meets AWWA. There's no battery somewhere in the hydrant. There's this just goes to the cloud. All the data is downloaded. Once this is on, they've hit it with baseball bats and all sorts of things, and it doesn't break. It's not very easily to tamper with. It's a specialty wrench or a screwdriver that you need to use with the different bolts or nuts on there so that you can, or bolts, sorry, for the program. So it's simple to install. I've done quite a few of them now, and it takes about 35 minutes to we pull the guts out of the existing hydrant, drop new guts in, add that part on the bonnet, and that's like really it. And I put the shroud on, plug in the battery, away I go. Or it'll come from the factory. You can order them as a whole hydrant with it already installed, and you just install it like a regular hydrant, and it instantly is working and reporting back to you. If you want to wait or a rare occasion they're not ready for it, then we'll just get you to attach the battery inside once it's installed, and it starts reading right away. We also have a ton of other technology coming with this, like acoustics and all of that, that'll all still be within the hydrant, within the base, all of that. And we just don't release it until it's 100%. To get a full breakdown, like if you had to do a full community and you want to see every main break and leak and find all everything and have full eyes to it, it's typically like 1 in 20 of these hydrants. Right now we're working with Oak Bay, and we do a return on investment. So we look at their full network and where they have good eyes and where their SCADA system's working and where strong and where there's gaps and where to put them. So we do all of that work or our tech guys, I should say, do all of that work. They also make sure that it connects to your SCADA system and so forth. We're making a lot of additional investments as well. We have a huge fitting company, Bibby, some of you might be familiar with it. We're investing another $20 million to build another plant because we can't keep up with the demand. We have Ontario, Quebec, and the whole East Coast, and we're able to provide fittings to that part of the country, so we needed to build another plant to be able to provide fittings to the West. This is what I'm really excited about. This is coming very soon. It's our One Grip valve. So it'll have 2 restraints. Every valve will come with 2 restraints on it. And then you can see it's a 1 bolt to tighten. So much faster, so much easier when you're in the trench to be able to apply the one grip technology to the hydrant. You've probably seen something a little bit like this. Is our own. We didn't lease from like Robar or anyone. Ours will be UL and FM approved. So you're going to meet all the requirements. It's just waiting for the stamp. We have a ton of these built, ready to go, but we need the final stamp of approval to get that moving. Perfect. I'm doing pretty good on time. Valves, just want to touch, I don't have a whole lot of time left, we're almost out here, but typically when you get your valve, you got to remember they're tested at the plant, everything's good, that their pressure, these ones are 250 PSI. It's when they arrive to you, it's if there is any issues, I highly recommend you retorque just the follower plate here and the other bolts before you install that. We've got like City of Delta does that all at their stores, guys. They retorque everything before it goes out in the field, just to be sure. It's like really rare that it happens, but if it isn't torqued right, you just want to make sure it's going to be underground for 40, 50 years. You don't want to ever have to dig that up. So 2 seconds of making sure it retorques, because as it comes across the country, it rattles, it's on big trucks and it's rattling all the way across. So you should always just double check and retorque your valves. If you have one in the ground and it gets, say, nicked, the top gets nicked by one of the trucks and it bends the stem, don't rip out the whole valve if it's already connected and all of that. You can just order a new valve and just take out the bolts and drop in a whole new, like all of this will come out, and then you can drop in a new one. A new top to it, so you're far less digging, or if it failed or had any issues, that's definitely the way to go. That is an old valve as well, so we do have more hooks on the new valves for installation, making it easier when you're lowering it into the ground. If anything, and then we're also we've upgraded our gate valves, or we're in the process of doing that, so it's a deeper channel for the O-rings at the top at the follower plate, so that there won't be really any issues or any concerns with them. But yeah, some of the guys, even to be sure that they've retorqued them, they'll just take a white marker and mark the bolts on top so that everyone knows before it gets installed that it's been retorqued. Perfect. So that was, I know we're getting pretty close on time, but did anybody have any questions or any other thoughts or questions about the hydrant or anything like that, or any other technology? Like, what's the difference between this one and that one? I might be able to answer.
We do have some questions online. Does anyone have any questions in here? You do?
Oh, yeah. Hopefully I can answer everything.
Well, since you're here, how much does the hydrant cost, the retrofit?
Yeah.
And you said they're in Princeton. Are all their hydrants in Princeton the hydrants now?
No, they didn't need to do all of them. It's like 1 in 20, but they've almost got a network full build
for
out.
Data, I see.
Yeah, I think they need 2 more or 3 more, so they have it in the budget for next year. So that they're really close to having a full integration with the hydrant. Yeah, it's pretty exciting for us to get that one going. They're not that expensive. So that's part of the goal with this. It does vary by depth of bury. So, every extra foot adds, a couple $100, just like when you order a regular hydrant, there's a couple extra bucks to that. It's like buying, it's like buying another hydrant. But when you're taking out the guts, you're putting all like $1,000 worth of pieces back on the shelf. So there's kind of that savings there. So it's kind of like the price of 2 hydrants. If you're buying it you're buying the hydrant and the hydrant components, it's like buying 2 hydrants in one. If you're just buying the retrofit, it's like buying 1 new hydrant. So it's not too bad.
Any other questions in here? Okay, I'll move on to.
I'm happy to get a quote. Oh, there's one more right there.
Oh, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
You said you had a kit to be able to replace the barrel and all the guts without excavating?
That's right. Yeah, so you can keep the same barrel in there. Yeah, so if you tell us which type of style of hydrant you have, we have like a variety of ones that'll fit on whichever kit. So yeah, it's a really good solution if the hydrant has too many problems to deal with, and the bottom and the barrel and the boot are fine. Yeah, you can totally replace the whole kit. Yeah, so it's a great solution.
How do you do it without excavating?
Yeah, it comes like as a, yeah, I think it comes in 2 parts. I haven't done one myself, but I know my coworkers are constantly working on those in like Toronto area where they have a lot of hydrants where it's really expensive to dig it all up. I can send you more information on that too. I know you guys were also looking at the inline hydrants and stuff like that. So yeah, I think we have a breakdown that shows all the kits and what they look like. We have kind of kits for everything. So you want to do, you don't want to buy the bonnet, you just want to replace the hydro lube. Like we have a kit for that. We have a kit for, you know, like of course, our extensions and so forth, but you don't have to buy it by little piece and try and figure it all out. It just all comes together as one component for you to replace.
Anything else in here?
Mm-hmm.
On your eye hydrant there, you say it monitors temperature, but normally there's not a lot of turnover on your hydrant lead. Like you have your lateral and then your lead. How is it turning over water to give you accurate information on temperature in the main?
That is a question I would probably have to ask our expert, but I could get that to you right away. But I know it's been really effective and groups have been really happy with how it's measuring temperature. I don't, we have an engineer. That's a high level engineer question. I don't know the answer to that right now at this moment, but if I get your card after, I'll just, or your email, I'll send it to you.
Anything else in here? All right, so we do have some questions from our online group here. Okay. What's the best time of year to schedule maintenance? And what are the parameters to consider?
Okay. Best time of year to schedule maintenance?
Yeah.
Maintenance can be done, yeah, like year round. We're always working on hydrants, but yeah. Yeah. You know, yeah, right, when you're not building and constructing and doing it, all that, but you also don't want to be freezing, you know, or have any sort of things freeze while you're working on it. So yeah, it'll be, a lot of the guys are doing it throughout the spring and the fall, or it's usually when they're less busy and people aren't all on vacation. So that's the other piece of the truth, right? So.
And a question here, how to reach you for a product inquiry?
Oh, yeah. On the website, if you go to, you'll see on cloudcanada.com. Otherwise, it's, my name is Carla Holowaychuk, but at Carla.Holowaychuk at cloudcanada.com. But because it's a very long email address, it's easier to just go to Cloud Canada and it lists the manufacturer. My first day when I started, I got them to change it, make sure it was my info there. So.
Okay, perfect. And then maybe we can get Stephanie to add that to the chat afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it's in the chat box actually.
Oh,
she's one step ahead.
Perfect.
Here,
Okay, she's on it.
Is there any other questions here? Oh, okay, that's all the questions then, unless anyone thought of anything. Okay.
Sure.
How often does Cloud recommend a full tear down on the hydrant for servicing?
Yeah, and it depends on the municipality. Really sets that. Some municipalities are doing it every 2 years. Some are doing it every 5 years. We kind of, for us, it depends, but the municipality is making those sort of decisions. Some are flushing, but usually they're doing a full tear down every 2 years. Some groups are doing it every 5. Sorry. So yeah, that's typically, if you need an A and B maintenance outline, I know those are pretty handy. I have that as well, so that you can just have a refresh if your team's going out. And just making sure you're hitting all the points.
Okay, awesome. So I think that's it. Thank you very much, Carla. That was super informative.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the help.